Picture this for a moment. It's your last day at work. You clear out your desk, someone brings in a retirement cake, a coworker smiles and says, "Must be nice," and you can't quite tell if they're joking. Then you walk to your car for the very last time as an employee. You sit there for a second before turning the key. Somehow, after imagining this day for years, you expected to feel more ready. Most people spend decades planning for that moment. But here's what almost nobody tells you about. The day of your retirement isn't the plan. It's the day the plan gets tested. If you want your retirement to feel like freedom instead of uncertainty, the real work happens years before you ever leave your job. So let's talk about what actually matters. Not just the numbers, but the decisions behind them. If you watched your parents or grandparents retire, you probably grew up with a picture of retirement that doesn't really exist anymore. Back then, many people spent their entire career with one employer. They had a pension that arrived every month like clockwork. Retirement happened on a specific date, and the paycheck simply continued in a different form. That system worked because it relied on a few assumptions. You'd stay with one company. You probably wouldn't spend decades in retirement, and someone else was responsible for managing the money. Today, none of those assumptions are guaranteed. Most people change jobs several times during their careers. And if you retire at 65 today, there's a good chance you'll need your savings to last another 25 or even 30 years. That's not a bonus, that's the challenge. Instead of relying on a pension, you're likely managing a 401k, an IRA, maybe an RRSP or TFSA in Canada, or a workplace pension and ISA in the UK. What this means is that one person is now responsible for turning a lifetime of savings into a paycheck that could last for decades. And that person is you. One mistake people make is treating retirement like flipping a light switch. Working on Tuesday, retired on Wednesday. In reality, retirement is a transition because two very different risks show up at exactly the same time. The first is living a long life. It sounds like a wonderful problem to have until you realize your money has to keep working for another 2 or 3 decades. That means part of your portfolio still needs room to grow. The second risk is retiring into a bad market. Imagine the stock market falls 20% during your first year of retirement. You're no longer adding money. You're taking money out. That's much harder to recover from than the exact same decline 15 years later. Early losses can have an outsized impact. So instead of trying to solve both problems on your retirement date, you prepare years in advance. Think of it as building a runway. 5 to 10 years before retiring, gradually move a portion of your investments into safer assets. By the time you stop working, aim to have 2 or 3 years of living expenses somewhere the stock market can't suddenly erase. That cash buffer gives your long-term investments time to recover if markets hit a rough patch. Suppose you've built a portfolio worth $900,000. Your retirement success won't depend on one huge decision made on your last day at work. It will depend on dozens of smaller decisions made over the previous 5 years. Here's the catch. Saving money and living off your savings require completely different skills. While you're working, ask yourself this question: how much can I save? Once you retire, the question changes to how much can I safely spend without running out? A common guideline is the 4% rule. What this does is that you withdraw 4% of your portfolio during your first year of retirement, then increase that amount with inflation each year. With a $1 million portfolio, that's about $40,000 in your first year, which is a useful starting point, but it was built using historical averages, and real life rarely follows averages. A more practical approach is staying flexible. Spend a little less during difficult market years. Allow yourself a little more when markets have been strong. It's less predictable, but it can significantly improve the chances that your money lasts. Another detail many people overlook is where their withdrawals come from. The order matters. In the US, many retirees draw from taxable brokerage accounts first, tax-deferred accounts like a traditional 401k or IRA next, and Roth accounts last, since Roth investments continue growing tax-free. In Canada, TFSAs often play a similar role because withdrawals aren't counted as taxable income. In the UK, ISAs and pensions are taxed differently, which changes the most efficient withdrawal strategy. Get the sequence wrong, and you could end up paying thousands more in taxes than necessary simply because no one explained the order. Beneath your investment portfolio sits another source of retirement income, which is Social Security in the United States, CPP and OAS in Canada, and the state pension in the UK.
Unlike your investments, these payments aren't affected by market swings, but the age you start claiming them can permanently change how much you receive. In the US, for example, you can begin Social Security as early as age 62, or delay until age 70. For many people, every year they wait after full retirement age increases their monthly benefit by roughly 8%. Someone eligible for $2,000 per month at age 67 could receive close to $2,480 by waiting until age 70. This is not a one-time increase. It's every month for the rest of your life. Of course, waiting isn't automatically the right answer. Your health, family history, savings, and income needs all matter. But it's one of the biggest financial decisions many retirees make, and it's worth thinking through carefully. While healthcare deserves just as much attention. In the United States, Medicare doesn't begin until age 65, because if you retire at 60 or 62, you'll need a plan to bridge those years. That could mean COBRA, an ACA marketplace plan, or coverage through a spouse. Whatever the solution is, don't bury those costs inside your general budget. Estimate them separately. They're often much higher than people expect. Now, we've talked almost entirely about money. Ironically, the hardest part of retirement often has nothing to do with money at all. Your job gives you structure, it gives you routines, and whether you notice it or not, it becomes part of your identity. The paycheck disappears on retirement day. So does much of that structure. People who thrive in retirement usually aren't retiring from something. They're retiring to something, which could be a project, volunteering, family, part-time work, or even travel. It could be a hobby they've always wanted to pursue. The people who struggle are often the ones whose entire identity was wrapped up in their career. Because when the job title disappears, they're left wondering who they are without it. That's why planning your first year of retirement matters just as much as planning your investment portfolio. Ask yourself a simple question.
What does an ordinary Tuesday look like? Not your account balance, your life. How will you spend your mornings? Who will you see? What gives your week purpose? Those answers matter more than most people realize. If you put everything together, the roadmap looks something like this. 5 to 10 years before retirement, begin shifting part of your portfolio towards safer investments and test your withdrawal strategy under different market conditions. 2 to 3 years before retirement, finalize your healthcare plan, map out your withdrawal order, and decide when you'll begin collecting guaranteed income. During your final working year, build a cash reserve that can cover 2 or 3 years of expenses. After retirement, stay flexible. Review your plan every year and adjust your withdrawals when necessary. Also, treat your purpose, routine, and relationships with the same care you've given your finances. The question is, will this guarantee a perfect retirement? The answer is no, nothing can. But it greatly reduces the risks that worry most retirees. Running out of money, paying unnecessary taxes, or reaching financial independence only to discover they have no idea how they actually want to spend their days.
That final day at work will still be emotional. The retirement cake will probably still feel a little awkward. You'll probably still sit in your car for a few extra seconds before driving away.
But whether the next 25 years feel like freedom or uncertainty was never going to be decided on that one afternoon. It gets decided in the years leading up to it, and in the choices you continue making long after your last paycheck arrives. That's where retirement is really built.